The Pam Goodwin Show is a show that features the biggest names in television, successful entrepreneurs, future new talents, and local heroes. My next guest graduated from Stanford. She was a former celebrity Fox newscaster, Miss America winner, took on the world's most powerful man in media, and now she is fighting to end sexual harassment for good. Welcome, Gretchen Carlson. I am thrilled for our next guest. I have been following her for years and years, and I'm thrilled to have her on the Pam Goodwin Show. Welcome, Gretchen Carlson.
Thanks for having me, Pam.
I know I've been following you for some time and thrilled, just to read everything that you're doing. We're about the same age group. And so reading about it just brought back, when I started in the mid 80s working, and one of the requirements was that we had to wear a dress, which if you can relate, you being from Minnesota and being, I'm from Nebraska. And in those cold winters, it's so great to see all of the changes that are happening in 2021 and everything that you're doing. But I'd love for you to tell our viewers, how you got the courage to, be a real, strong women's advocate.
Well, it's not something that you develop overnight. I credit my upbringing in a small town in Minnesota, actually, also the Midwest, and my Protestant work ethic, and parents who told me that I could be anything that I wanted to be in my life, but it would take a lot of hard work. So I think that that's a huge part of building courage in a person to step out, especially women, because we're socialized as little girls to be perfect and color inside of the lines and not take risks. And those are exactly the things that we should be teaching our little girls to do, just like we do boys. And then I would say that courage building is, some of it's innate. I've always had a fire in my belly. Sometimes I wish I could turn it off at night, especially at 2 a.m. But that fire in my belly has been what's propelled me through never giving up on anything, whether it's my career or as a kid when I was a serious violinist practicing, or, and then fast forward to when I decided to jump off the cliff and sue my boss, Roger Ailes at Fox News, for harassment. It's not like you decide that in one day. I always say it's not like walking into a room and flipping on a light switch. It's something that built up inside of me for a long period of time. I knew it was wrong, and I needed to have all my ducks in a row. People who know me well know that I never do anything quickly. I always make sure that I have, evidence and proof. And, it just took me a long time. What finally made me jump was that they fired me. And I had killed myself over 30 years for a career to get to the national stage. And I figured at that point in time, if I don't speak up about this, who will? And I'm not sure anyone else ever would have. So that's really, what made me do it.
I know. I think women, after you came out and, we saw it, and then the movie, The Bombshell. But I know, talking with a lot of my women friends, hearing from your story, and then when it was broadcasted all over the media, I think we all can relate that we all have had some story of some format of sexual harassment. And I've always been in a, male career, working on construction sites and now in commercial real estate. And it's so great that you have come out and started the Me Too and are really making a difference in this world.
Well, thank you. Funny you bring up the movie Bombshell. There was also a miniseries on Showtime called The Loudest Voice about my story at Fox. But here's the interesting side note that people don't know. I couldn't participate in those projects at all. I can't even tell you or your viewers whether or not the portrayals of my story are accurate or not. And you might ask why? Because I had to sign this stringent non-disclosure agreement. And that's really what I'm fighting against now. Not necessarily so that Gretchen Carlson can tell her own personal story one day, which would be great, because I was there 11 years, so I have a lot to tell, but more so for the millions of American women and men who are also being silenced in the workplace, and who are facing issues like harassment, discrimination of all different kinds. And they're being put into these secret chambers where nobody ever knows about their stories. So that's really what I'm fighting for now, is making change full scale in the workplace. And it's something that I never thought that I would be doing ever. It's not like you aspire to put on your resume, poster child for sexual harassment in the workplace. But it's something that I think back to my childhood. Again, it's like I never, ever give up on anything. And when this was put in front of me, I realized there was so much work to be done and no one else was doing it on these issues. And so that's what I'm doing almost every single day, dedicating my time to this passion project now.
I know it. On the show, I interview a lot of women, and we always talk about, trying to become fearless and have more courage. And I feel like growing up too, it was, thank goodness I had a strong mother that always encouraged. And it sounds like your mother too really encouraged you to take that leap. I remember even in the 8th grade, I tried out for the boys baseball team, and I know you were a softball player. And I think, being in sports or playing the violin, and having that dedication really makes a difference to have that courage and, having women come out and, have more of it.
Yeah, 100%. I love that story about you. My mom actually played on the boys baseball team growing up in Chicago, which was even way before our time, obviously. She's 80 right now. So, yeah, I think I always say to people, when you dedicate something, when you dedicate time to something as a kid, whether it's music or sports or academics, you learn to build your self-esteem from the inside of who you are, because you develop talents that people can't take away from you, and you develop discipline that will serve you well no matter what you choose to do in your life. And really, that was, I wrote my first book before I jumped off the cliff, called Getting Real, which was really my memoir about my life and this hard work ethic and everything I'm talking about right now. Then I wrote Be Fierce after my whole experience at Fox, really as a guidebook for women and men who were facing harassment in the workplace, because nobody ever gave a damn about this before. Nobody was writing about this. Nobody was telling people what to beware of. Nobody was telling people what to do. I can't tell you how many thousands of people have reached out to me since my story 5 years ago, because they're just desperate. There's just not a lot of information out there. They're desperate as to how to handle the legal situation. They're desperate about whether they should come forward or not. And that's really what made me realize this is a pervasive epidemic. This is not just female journalists, and it's not just famous Hollywood actresses from Harvey Weinstein. No, these are our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters, our members of the military, our fast food workers. It's everywhere. And that's why you say almost every woman has a story. It is so true. And that's why the work that I'm doing now will impact so many people, because almost every person has a story, unfortunately.
I know, it reminds me of, we have 2 boys and they're 20 and 21. And in grade school, they teach you not to smoke. And then a little bit, maybe in middle school, they teach you, about all the sex stuff. But it really surprises me that they don't really teach, the young men and young women these days more about how to treat each other. Mm-hmm. And I saw on your Instagram post, I loved it, with, teaching your daughter and your son how to respect people. And I have been doing that since our boys were little. And I wanted to let you know that I just received one of the best compliments from my son's girlfriend. He said, I just wanted to tell you that Grant has so much respect for women, and thank you. And I know, seeing that on your Instagram post of sharing that to our young kids, you don't really think about that. You think of the adults. So thank you for that. Thank you for being that kind of a mom. One of the biggest lessons I've learned, other than this is a pervasive epidemic that I'm trying to solve, is that we need to get to our boys young. We do a really great job of lifting up girls and women in our society. There's a gazillion organizations out there. Women outpace boys now in academics, in high school graduation, in college graduation, but the problem is that men pretty much still rule the world when it comes to hiring and firing and pay. What is it that 95% of all CEOs in Fortune 1000 companies are men, which, okay, so we're making some progress as women, but the key is, if they're actually making all these decisions, then we have to get to boys young to be able to get them to that point where they respect women like they do their moms and their sisters. Because when they get into the workplace, then they will have a better attitude towards paying women fairly, promoting them, not sexually harassing them, not blacklisting them when they come forward, et cetera.
So I always say I should be spending all of my time at boys' schools, actually, trying to get to them at an age before they have put their opinions and values together. And so far, I've spoken to one boys' school. I don't think it's something, you're right, they don't think about it as a curriculum thing, but it's definitely true with my son and my daughter. I've seen changes in them since I came forward. And I always say, if I've only even just changed those two little souls, then it would have all been worth it. But I know that I'm impacting so many other people and hopefully a lot of young men.
I think you're impacting a lot. Who were some of the women role models for you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, so many along the way. I think it's really, really important to also give back as a woman now myself too, which I've done my entire career because I got so much help from other women. So, I'd say first and foremost, I had some amazing female bosses along the way that really pushed me. And it was kind of a sink or swim situation. My first boss in television when I was in Richmond, Virginia, she came to me one day and she said, "You're the political reporter now." And I was 23 and knew nothing. I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Yep, you're going down to cover the governor every single day." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." And so it was sink or swim. And back then, I was the only female reporter covering the governor, if you can believe that. And so that, that was really instrumental in building my television career. Obviously, my mom's just a driving force in my life. But I also like to point to, of course, female journalists who came before me who really paved the way, the Barbara Walters and the Connie Chuns and the Diane Sawyers of the world. And then I would just say female politicians who led their countries. I'm thinking of Margaret Thatcher, and I'm thinking of Angela Merkel, currently the Chancellor of Germany, and I'm thinking of Benazir Bhutto from Pakistan, and these women who found themselves elevated to positions of running their own companies and running their own countries. And up until recently, we didn't really see that in America. We now have a vice president who is female, which is amazing. Politics aside, people always get mad at me, like if they're on the other side of the fence. I'm just saying that from a role model point of view, it's good to have a woman who has achieved that, because I'm a huge believer in seeing is believing. And especially for our girls, if they can see that a woman can actually do that job, then they'll also want to maybe try and do that. And so, a lot of different role models in my life, but I've been blessed to have some great female bosses who really put me in positions that maybe I wouldn't have been given those opportunities if it wasn't them.
I know it's great to see all of the women and all of the new changes and roles they have and, really making a difference. I did want to, just ask you about that. I loved it when you were on Fox News and they were talking about, what was it, a couple women's roles or something, and you walked off the stage. I love that. And I think the older we get, especially, we're close, similar in age, and I stand up so much more, but I just loved when you walked off that stage. I just loved it.
Well, it was not planned, but yeah, they were, my male colleagues were saying, they were belittling the fact that women can do so many things now. And I was like, I said, well, if you guys are so great, then you just handle the news. So I got up and left, and it was having fun with it. I was laughing off in the darkness of the sidelines of the studio. But, it actually was kind of a silent protest for me. People now in retrospect can point back and see a couple of things that I did when I was there, that I was really trying to let people know what was actually happening to me without actually saying it. And, so while that was in jest, it actually had a deeper meaning for me at the time because I was struggling so much. And it was just one of those things I didn't plan. And there were a bunch of other things that I did that were kind of silent protests that people would have never picked up on, but they made me feel better on a daily basis when I was going through what I was going through there.
That's good. And now I always have to ask, being a former newscaster, I'm sure people come up to you, but if somebody came up to you now and said, I would love to be a broadcaster on national platform, what would you say?
I would say fantastic. You have to work incredibly hard and you have to move all around the country and you have to pay your dues. And, if you're willing to sacrifice a lot of other parts of your life for probably 10 years or so, then go for it. Oh, also, you have to learn how to live on no money. because there's so many people want to do TV that they realize they don't really have to pay you much at the beginning. My first job, just to put it in retrospect, after I had graduated from Stanford University, attended Oxford University, and was Miss America, I made $16,000 a year.
Wow.
And I remember calling my parents and saying, okay, I can cover the rent and my car payment, but I can't pay for electricity. So, and I ate Domino's pizza like every night for like 4 months because it was the cheapest thing that I could find. Because I was just determined that I could do it, and I didn't want any help at all. And it was a really great lesson for me. And I think every kid should go through that, quite honestly, to really start to see, I didn't get my clothes dry cleaned for forever because I couldn't afford it. And, so that would be my lesson to people in TV. It's kind of a hard road, but if you have, the determination and you're willing to make those sacrifices, then by all means, go for it.
And I saw that you have a podcast, and then is that true that you're going to be a co-host on The View coming up here next month?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I also work for People TV, which is People Magazine's TV show. So if you go to peopletv.com, you'll see my reports. I do inspirational stories, kind of like what we're doing right now. And my podcast is Get the News with Gretchen, and it's on quakemedia.com/Gretchen. It's straight down the middle news headlines every day, only 10 minutes, because I have so many people come to me and say, where can I just get the facts? And we live in hyper, political time right now, partisan time. And it was really the genesis of the idea of doing this podcast is, headlines that don't have bias. And it's just everything that you need to know on the particular day. So I do that Monday through Friday. And then, I'm going to host The View on October 25th and 26th. I've done it a lot before, but looking forward to it again. And hopefully there'll be a lot of news to talk about on those days. I'm sure there will be.
Well, that's great. I know you've done so much, and I have to ask every guest, what is still on your bucket list?
Oh gosh. Number one, travel. Since COVID, it's like my favorite thing to do, and I haven't been able to do that. I've never been to the Far East. I'd love to go to that part of the world. And also to pass my legislation. I have a bill on the Hill right now in the Senate and the House to get rid of forced arbitration clauses in employment contracts. Everyone should look at their contract to see if you have one, because I bet you do. Because by 2024, 80% of Americans are going to have these clauses. What does it mean? It means that if you have a problem at work, like I did, or you're being discriminated against, that you can't go to an open jury process. You can't file a lawsuit. You have to go to this secret chamber of arbitration. And it's a bipartisan bill. I have Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, and Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand from New York. They are my co-sponsors in the Senate. It's probably the only thing they agree on, but I'm glad that they do. And they believe that it's a human rights violation to stuff these kinds of issues into secrecy and basically allow companies to cover up their dirty laundry. So we reintroduced the bill again in July. And if this passes, that's massively on my bucket list, because it'll be the most major change in labor law in the last 100 years. And it will be my greatest life accomplishment other than my 2 children. It'll be greater than any TV show I've done. It'll be greater than being Miss America by leaps and bounds. It'll be so monumental because it's going to help millions of workers, and it's going to transform the safety of the workplace. So definitely, that's all the work that I'm doing at Lift Our Voices, which is my nonprofit organization. And we're trying to get rid of forced arbitration and non-disclosure agreements, because that's how we've kept these issues away from the public. And we've allowed predators to be protected. And it's only through openly discussing these issues that we actually solve them. So we need to take it out of secrecy. And people can learn more at liftourvoices.org. And I appreciate everyone checking it out.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm just so grateful for everything that you're doing, and especially, encouraging women to have a voice and to stand up for what they believe in. And we'll make, hopefully, I'm sure it will get passed, but we'll be looking out for that. And really, really appreciate, Gretchen, you being on the show. It's made it. I was just thrilled to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
And if you're ever back in Dallas, let me know.
Oh, yeah. I love Dallas. It was one of my stops. So And I started saying y'all after about 24 hours. So, so I really loved Dallas a lot. Thank you so much, Pam. Have a great day.
Thank you, Gretchen.